All right, so we're gonna wait. We're on time. We're on time, so we're gonna start. How's that sound? So, what I want to talk about today is, let's think of it this way: is where is advertising going, and how can we accomplish it? So, the thing on here says laser point. Internally in our agency, we named our product, or this product, Laser Point. So it's kind of an artificial title, but it is your audience in the crosshairs, right? So you can already figure out what this is going to be about. It's going to be about targeted advertising. So the next one is just who I am. I'm William Shelton. I am one of the founders, owners of Find 8 Performance Marketing. We're located in Lafayette, Indiana. Lafayette, Indiana is a little secret to our success, right? We're an hour from here and 2 hours from Chicago, but Midwestern prices, right? So, while people are making $100,000 in Chicago collecting food stamps, in Lafayette, Indiana, you're $100,000 a year, you're living high in the hogs. So we really love it. Plus, I lived in Chicago for 20 years, didn't really want my kids to grow up there. I'll date myself a little bit. I didn't want my grade school kids with a day timer. Probably shouldn't have said day timer because you're like, wow, how freaking old are you? So I wanted kids to have a little slower pace of life. I didn't want to have to fit in an appointment to hang out with them. So we moved to Lafayette and started an agency. Currently, like I said, I'm an owner. I do mostly project management and account management, but I listed the last one, the janitor, because my wife really kind of started the agency, so she had me cleaning the toilets to begin with, and I worked my way up. She's difficult to work for. All right, so let's really get started. The first one, if you flip to the next slide, I'm just going to show you this great video clip. That's not going to happen, but does anybody recognize this? This is from a movie called Minority Report. And so in Minority Report, what we had is several scenes with Tom Cruise walking through a mall or walking through a train station where different cameras were picking up his retina scan, right? And they were feeding him personalized marketing. Now, the scenes are a little hairy because he's running from, law enforcement and all this stuff. But if you look beyond it, the movie was made by Steven Spielberg, he had a good idea of where marketing was going. He had a real good view of the future. In one scene, when Tom Cruise walks in, he's got new retinas, right? And the Gap lady, the AI says, hey, welcome, Mr. Nakamura. Did you enjoy the tank tops that you bought the last time you were here? The point being is that is where it is going. We're going to become more and more targeted as we go on. We're going to be more and more about what I say on the next slide. It's going to be more and more about the right audience at the right time with the right message in the right place and the right product. Think about the current 20-somethings, right? Think about their phone. Do they just answer their phone? No. You must text them first and ask permission. You make an appointment for a phone call. We are getting that way, especially because we're so accessible with things like phones, where I can reach out and shout in your ear anytime I want to. That's becoming more and more, so you're gonna have to get permission. You're not gonna market to people with a megaphone anymore, right? If you don't have permission to talk to them, if you don't deliver the right message at the right time to the right people, not only are they going to start to ignore your marketing, which they already are, but as it advances, they're going to start to diminish your brand, right? They don't want to hear, if you don't fit them, they don't want to hear about it because they're interrupted all the time, right? So where did all this start? Well, it all started with Amazon, right? Amazon wasn't really a book company, right? It started off, as a book company online, but that's not really who they were. Really who they were was a genius marketing company. Because what they did is they followed what you read. They went beyond just like you like this author, or you like this style of writing, or you like this subject matter, right? It was beyond that. Your library could do that. You walk in the library and say, I want a thriller written by this guy, and they'll pull it off the shelves. Amazon went beyond that, and they dug deeper than that, and their very rudimentary AI was like a trusted friend. They sent you an email. They put their arm around your shoulder and said, you know what? You've read all these 6 books. I really think you're going to like this one. And guess what? Most of the time you did. It came on, it was marketing, but it wasn't really marketing to the people at the end. It was a service. It felt like a service. It felt like your best buddy slipped you a note and said, try this car wash, or this is where this is the electrician you should use. Amazon did that. Now they did it in a very rudimentary fashion. It wasn't scanning retinas and it wasn't AI talking to you in the gap, but it was the beginning of that. That's where we started. So like I said here, it was the right place, the right time, the right product. Felt more like a service than a sales pitch. And that's where we want to go. Have any of you, boy, this is going to be all of you, right? How many of you have gotten ads on Facebook that felt like Facebook was listening to what you're talking about? All right. So, Facebook might listen to what you talk about. However, they really don't have to. Because between your search history, between your data that's online, between what you've allowed online, and a lot of you probably think it's credit card information, and it's not that it's not, but really the main sort of, when you tell the world who you are, loyalty cards, right? If you have a loyalty card, when you sign the loyalty agreement to get $25 off whatever you get at Fridays the next time you eat there, when you do that, you give them permission to share all your data, right? So credit card's part of it, loyalty card's a big part of it. So between your Facebook activity, the data from loyalty cards, the data from credit cards, and all of this stuff, they can really not only feed you up exactly what you're looking for, and quite frankly, almost all of you raised your hands when you said it felt like Facebook was listening to you. On the other side, how many times have these Facebook ads been at the right place at the right time? You're like, yeah, I've been thinking about doing that, and I just saw an ad, and I went ahead and did it. In fact, my wife, who's a co-owner of the company, has pretty much trained her Facebook to do exactly that. If she's interested in something, she does a few searches, she clicks through to a few websites, and lo and behold, now Facebook is a service giving her ads for exactly what she's looking for, right? We introduced a piece of software in our agency a year ago that she found on Facebook. Right? She taught Facebook what to give her, and it gave it to her, and away we went. All right. So this next one is a mouthful. The next slide that's on here at the top, it'll say flow of ads and money, flow of ad slots, right? This is how the current day version of those 2 extremes I've given you functions. So if you look at the left side, this is all the advertiser. So this is all of you guys saying, you know what, my product is perfect for 35 to 45-year-old business owners that like hunting, that live in this neighborhood. Okay? We take that all on one side and we feed it to the middle. On the other side are all the advertisers. The advertisers then say, you know what, I have a spot, whether it be the video game on your phone, whether it be on your Roku device where you get a commercial between segments in a show, whatever it is, they all go and say, I have this spot. And they tend to give a certain amount of data about what that spot is. So you have one side that tells you the target market, another side that says, I have a place to put it, and here's who comes here. And then at the bottom, you have where it says data providers. This is companies like Axiom. This is companies like IRI. You guys ever heard of IRI? All right. Have you guys ever heard of Nielsen? Yeah. Right. Nielsen is who does radio and TV. They tell you who's watching and how many. IRI does that for absolutely everything else except for radio and TV. If you introduce a new brand of Tide Pods, right? You know, I'm P&G. I'm going to make, mint flavored Tide Pods to appeal to the younger generation. If I want to know how many I want to sell, I talk to IRI, and they'll say, if you're on the 3rd shelf of aisle 5 at an end cap in Walmart, this is how many you will sell. Wow. They track all that data. They're one of these companies that feeds up into these 2 sides to round out their data. Now, the good news is everybody's upset. They don't want their personal data fed out there. It's really not. The data that's being fed up is metadata. So they don't say, Bill bought peanut butter yesterday. They give all my demographic data that they can, practically identifying me, but not using my name, and say I bought peanut butter yesterday, right? So that's how these other companies round out, both sides round out their information. So if we look at the middle, this is, like it said, this is where the action happens. This is like a real-time auction. So the advertiser comes up and goes, hey, I got 50-year-old white males in the suburbs, and the advertisers go, I'll give you $1 for that. Another one, I'll give you $25 for that. And it goes on. Well, it happens in real time. It happens so fast, it happens at the click of a website. That negotiation is done and your ad is launched, whether it be on that video game, wherever it is, wherever it decides to show up. It is done super fast in real time. A lot of times clients will ask me, I'm like, I can really micro-target. I can put your ad in a neighborhood. I can put it towards people's titles. Let's say you just want to market to CFOs. I can do that. Let's say you just want to market to people with a .edu email address. I can do that, right? So I can do all this super targeting. And then they'll say, well, okay, where's my ad going to be? And they expect me to go, oh, ESPN.com or whatever. And I'm like, I don't know. I have no clue. What your ads are going to go where your people are. So if it just so happens that your people are playing solitaire on their phone, that's where it's going to end up. But I don't know that. I don't know that going forward, right? Because this is all a real-time negotiation in the middle. So as we look at this, I'll add a few other things. The advertiser would be us. The ad server in this would be software that we've acquired or rented or whatever. And then the DSPs are who puts this together. Now, I'm going to show you a couple slides. I want you to think about some more information feeding into that third one. On the other side, the supply side, the details are not so much important on this one, other than it's a big clearinghouse. It's a big auctioneer with a bunch of products. But this is how we can start to target, not quite the Tom Cruise movie, we're not quite there, but with all the information you've put out there, we can get real close to that. We're not going to be able to use their name, but by the time we layer on demographics, we're pretty much going to know who they are. As an example, one of our software vendors that dips in this pool was able to layer on enough demographics that he proposed to his future wife with this type of advertising. He layered on enough demographics that only she got the ad. Never used her name. Yeah, Carter in the front row here is looking at it as a dating app, okay?
No. I want that to happen so they buy diamonds from me.
That's exactly right. And that's what it comes up to. So one of the things we do as part of this that isn't even on this slide is all of you understand what target marketing is, right? Most of you can tell me the general things about your target. But one of the things that goes on with this is we continue to build this person out, just like you build a character in a story. So a lot of writers talk about this. If they build their character so well and they understand their character so well, when they put them in certain situations, they know what they're going to do, right? So the book writes itself. We do that on the marketing side. We'll build out a persona for your client so well that we'll be able to predict that person's behavior, right? We may not know they go to ESPN, but once we build it, we go, that's probably a guy that goes to ESPN, right? He's on ESPN.com. We need to do it there. We need to put the ad there. The line I wanted to draw above the DSP is the next slide. This is a slide that we put together, or this is an ad we put together for state of California in a program they were running. And if you look at it, this is an element of then, we talked about right place and right time and right product. But when you micro-target that much, you can then turn around and do right message. Because I know I can talk just to you. Like our client, like the software person who proposed to his wife, he knew exactly who he was talking to, so his message could be really tiny. Please marry me, right? On this, what we did is we applied a dynamic creative engine. So this is the core ad. This is one of the ads, right? It was put together on the fly for the audience, but it also understood what language their browser was set to, where they were from. So it was able to create this ad, or if you flip the page, it was able to create an ad in English, with an African American audience. It was able to create a Hispanic audience with Hispanic graphics. So now we've added the next layer of right message, right? I can talk specifically to you, and I can feed you images and languages that you understand. This doesn't feel like marketing anymore. This feels like a trade show. This feels like you're coming up and talking to me about what I want to hear, right? And so your your bullhorns in the world of marketing just aren't going to play anymore. It's just not going to work. Questions? The slides would have been way better.
I see that you're doing this for families. What exactly is this? Oh, I see.
So yeah, okay, if there's any confusion, I'm sorry if I didn't explain it better. So what happens is at that, remember the middle where there's the auction house, just the step before that, the media is purchased, but then it knows who the ad's being fed to, so it will feed them the creative that fits them. Like I mentioned, like people usually set their browser to a language. So you have, this one was for family care. You have a Hispanic couple in California that has a browser speak Spanish. Then the ad, we know who they are, but then we also know to change the language to Spanish. Whereas we know if it's an English audience, we change to English, so on and so forth.
So are you using, I understand using the different people, different demographics of race, but
We could do age too,
okay.
right? So if this is an older family, we feed older images. Because any kind of marketing, we want to see ourselves.
You can go to the Lions, which the CEOs, right?
Yep.
How would you figure out that I'm going to take something other than my business because I think this might be harder? Somebody who's selling mortgages.
Mm-hmm.
What are you trying to pinpoint there?
With a more, well,
Obviously, somebody who's in the market to buy a house, but
right.
are you going to break up the demographics?
Correct.
Okay.
Right. So any of us, it's very rare that there's a single demographic or persona. Right. I keep using one. I keep using, our basic 35 to 45 or whatever. Right. But a lot of times somebody has a business that it's like, oh, my business is B2C for people that need their carpet cleaned. Or we also want to talk to the building manager of a large corporation to go ahead and do that. Well, we can feed different ads to different people. It's the same campaign, but this demographic gets the B2C, the client, the end client one. This one gets the building manager, right? That kind of stuff.
Why do you think that, I'll just use this city in particular because I actually built the amount of money that was being spent, don't spend it all anymore. Why does, the three big players in this city still throw millions of dollars at air? What I mean by air
Oh,
is
TV and radio.
unquantifiable results.
Right. So, Marketing 101. You have, for me, to keep it simple, and this is, no detail, I break it up into awareness and branding. And then you take the other side and you break it up into lead generation, right? Awareness and branding are going to be radio, TV. You're not really saying, you're not making a deal, right? What you're saying is, we are McDonald's and we have value food.
Traditional advertising
Right.
forever, and I had to keep throwing mud at the wall as my dad.
Right.
But it would rain and the mud would wash off.
Because
So throw more mud.
branding and awareness, the end goal of branding and awareness is not sales. So you're measuring it, you're saying I'm going to add 1 in the letter A and I want to get a swimming pool. It doesn't make sense. It's not all in the same equation. On this equation over here for awareness and branding, what you should be measuring is reach and frequency. All of you have probably heard those terms in any marketing you've done. That's your goal. Your goal is for the most amount, and like it's the old traditional 7 touches. You've got to see my ad 7 times before you start to remember who I am. But that's the only goal. The goal isn't to pick up the phone and call, right? The goal is to go, I heard of those guys.
I tried to do it with putting product on there, price points, and I have to say that was the most miserable failure I ever had.
What I would recommend typically for, let's say, a brand that needs awareness. So if you're selling something very, very nichey, awareness and branding is just flat out too expensive, right? If I'm selling size 7 shoes and that's it, that's all I sell, doing a TV commercial does not make sense. I want to find some avenue where I can talk to people who wear size 7. So if you have a niche, but McDonald's, you sell burgers, everybody eats a burger, so it doesn't matter. But on this side, if I'm in a business that needs awareness, I do that awareness, I do that branding. So the awareness, you've heard of me, the branding is you know what I stand for, and then you back it up with lead generation. Because now I've heard of you, and then you turn around with another ad that says, hey, we have the best, or I'm a custom jeweler. Don't buy production, buy something made for you. And the combination of I've heard of you, and now you're saying buy my custom, get on my schedule before the end of Christmas kind of thing. Now you're doing lead generation. The combination will work. With clients we work with though, right, if you're a little nichey or you're broke, awareness and branding doesn't make any sense, right? I apologize. Hopefully, if there's any radio and TV people in here, I'm sorry. But a small business classically doesn't have that kind of revenue that doesn't lead directly to sales. So when I work with a new business, typically what I'll do is, let's do lead generation. Let's get you sales. And then when you have some money, if you have a business that needs branding and awareness, then we'll do it after we've made you some money, and then we'll go back to lead generation, right? So the steps, always doing them in a row doesn't make sense.
How can you prove to me that you actually gave you lead generation?
Gave you lead generation, that's one of the reasons we kind of went into mostly digital. So when you talk about lead generation, and really quite frankly, when you talk about awareness, any of the digital products are way less expensive, but the other thing they'll do on the lead generation side is they can track. Now, radio and TV can tell you reach and frequency, and that's the number you want. That's what you were trying to accomplish. You're trying to get the most people to see your name and hear your stuff. And when they give you reach and frequency, don't come back and go, I didn't get any sales, because that's not what they promised. They promised that people would hear your name. On this side that we tend to lean on, the lead generation side, we can track. All of you know this. We could track just about everything on a website, right? I get a report every morning from who's been on my website, right? Like I know. You get a report of visitors. You can look at the pages they went to. You can look at what kind of laptop they used, all that kind of stuff. You can get all that information. Then you can look at actions. You can look at click-throughs. You can look at phone calls. You can look at form fills. And then at that point, once it ends up on the business owner's doorstep, then my part is, I wouldn't say it's done, but at that point I can go, did you sell this, right? I can't close the sale. What I can do is say, I sent you 500 leads and you're like, I closed 3. How were they? Well, they were terrible quality. And I'm like, okay, we need to go back and look at messaging, right? They weren't good quality, so let's see what we could do about making it. And then next month you got 1 lead, but it was amazing quality. All right, now we're hitting where we need to be, right? That kind of stuff. So it does require the business owner feedback. Now, what we're trying to do is work with certain accounting firms and work with certain software. And if business owners are open to letting us see closed sales through something like QuickBooks, then we could even turn that reporting into, we could take you all the way from lead to dollar value. And that's ultimately the final goal is, can we do lead to dollar value? Because then at that point, you spend a certain amount on marketing, you could turn around and go, this is exactly what I got from it. But back to your other question too, is this whole side, this is amorphous. Does it turn into sales? It could. It absolutely could. Does it support sales? It absolutely does. But to what degree? How much? What have I done? That's where we've all seen the success story of somebody with like an amazing local commercial that just caught everyone's eye and that business exploded. But that's hard to predict. That's, oftentimes it's luck.
And everybody else happy.
I knew a chiropractor in Chicago who he opened his business, and his phone number in Spanish was very sing-songy. It was super catchy. He was not the best doc in the world. He would admit that. And he opened up his first practice, did his first TV commercial, and that phone number would resonate in everybody who spoke Spanish's brain. And he had an amazing business. He legit couldn't run a business to save his life. But this commercial just hit. But there is zero predicting that, right? You roll the dice, you pay your money, and you see if your lottery ticket wins. For the most part, we named our company Find Eight Performance Marketing because we like to measure performance. We'll go with reach and frequency over here, make sure the price makes sense, and then go on to lead generation where we can get into a lot more detail, a ton more detail. Anybody else? I could do this all day. Yes?
Can you describe the difference between what you're talking about here and what someone would get if they just went on to Google AdSense or something like that?
Thank you for asking that question because I want to talk about something there and forgot. Two things that will answer your question. Pay-per-click. Pay-per-click, the targeting is nice and Google's pay-per-click has vastly improved. And so it is, right, do you want an ad that is less expensive and hits more people and has more duds, or do you want something that's more expensive and more targeted but has fewer duds? And sometimes the price can be about even, just, you have more waste over here, you have fewer little waste over here, but get close. If you'd asked me this question 3 years ago, I'd say don't do Google pay-per-click no matter what. Unless somebody threatens your life, don't do it. But Google's done a lot to clean it up. So pay-per-click is simply a number crunch. You sit down and look at it and see if it makes sense. The more, what I can give you off the top of my head is, the more general need the product is, the more pay-per-click makes sense. The more niche-y, the less it makes sense. Because you also got to talk gross number, right? Maybe you own a section of pay-per-click, like you're there, everybody, but nobody searches that term, or few people search it. So you're getting 100% of the people that go there, but 100% of the people that go there is 8 people. Who cares? So the other thing I would say, when you're starting to look at, and a lot of this in the industry is called programmatic media, when you look at programmatic media, it is still a little bit of the Wild West out there. Highly unregulated. And so you are much more likely to find a company that is feeding all of your ads to Saudi Arabia than Carmel, right? And so, and we speak from experience. We've had to deal with some of the duds. They promise you everything and deliver nothing. And really what they're in business for is to take your month one budget and run, because they know you'll catch on eventually. So one of the things, of course I'm where I am, so I'm going to suggest deal with an expert that is your advocate to make sure you're working with the right companies. A lot of the stuff that we do, we've took massive amounts of money invested in the software. So in some ways, it's almost like we're a retailer, right? We bought the big inventory of the big software, and now we're able to sell pieces of it to do the jobs. So we live it and we do it all the time. And so part of what anybody pays for us, it's like the old joke. There's an old joke, right? Building a house, putting in the electric. There's a team of electricians there, and they all can't figure out why the lights won't come on. Finally, they call this old crusty electrician. I'm that electrician in the story. Cranky old crusty guy comes in, looks around for about 5 minutes and goes, blick, and all the electricity comes on. He goes, that'll be $2,000. They're like, $2,000? You flipped a switch. He goes, you didn't pay me to flip the switch. You paid me to know which one to flip. That's a lot of what a really good marketing company does. We know which ones to use. Like I was talking to some of the guys out here today, is, things as simple as a business card. Do you want to pay for a bad batch, or you want to pay a little extra and we'll get it right? We're still using an outside vendor, but we've used them all. We know which ones are going to execute. That kind of stuff. So, More questions? I get the timeout, which means I got, no, you probably timing out a minute ago. Yeah, I ignored her and I told her I would watch, and yeah, she was super sweet. So, but wait, I'm the last one, right? So doesn't that, oh, there is? It can't be as good as what I'm talking about. We are at the booth on the corner. I'll be respectful for once in my life. We're at the corner. I'd love to talk to all of you guys about this. Just remember going forward, the old sale megaphone, probably not going to work. Not unless you're selling air or water. If you're selling anything that's unique, you probably need to educate and speak directly to your audience in a voice that's respectful of your brand and their time. Thanks, guys.